Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan here for an Inside the Birds podcast that's going to cover a lot of things today. We're obviously going to get into the Super Bowl. The matchup is decided. We'll talk about that. Some Eagles news with the front office as they have a departure. We'll talk about the significance there. And Adam Caplan, as he does this podcast, is anxiously awaiting his flight down to Mobile, Alabama for the start of the Senior Bowl. So we will preview the Senior Bowl and what Adam expects to see. And I'm even more excited for the next podcast where Adam goes through everything that happened at the Senior Bowl. So this is a good time to remind everybody that we are now in our off-season podcast format. So we are a Monday, Thursday operation going forward until probably training camp. So adjust your calendars. Remember that that's what we are doing 2 times a week. And we may have the Q&A show run a little early this week. It'll still be on. It's normally at some point this week, but we'll keep you updated on that. But just wanted to get through that. Adam, nobody I know of had the Bengals 49ers Super Bowl going into the year unless they woke up and still thought it was the late 80s.
Yeah, right. Sure,
man.
With John Robinson as the head coach of the Rams, and then wow. I mean, late early 90s, John Robinson. Jeff Fisher, after he didn't get the Eagles head coaching job, became the Rams defense coordinator. But no, in fact, it's funny. So I do TV on Sunday morning, and I'm doing with Scott Farrell, and he goes, "All right, who do you got?" And I said, I like the Chiefs. I said, I like the -7 because it's sort of a gaming show. I'm not a gambler, but I'm happy to talk point spread. So, and in fact, I didn't say it on the air, but I felt that the Chiefs might blow out the Bengals.
I thought so too.
Well, it's funny. So they're up 21-3, and it went just like I thought. First half, the Bengals looked outclassed. I don't want to say looked happy to be there, but they look bad. They look flat. You're at Arrowhead. You're not winning this game.
Right. It looked like the Chiefs were just a better team overall. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. It looked just like I thought it would. I look, oh, good. I'm going to get this one right. Didn't feel good about the Rams. We'll get to that in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it was 21-10, I'm like, all right, they made it respectable. Good. I would like to be a respectable game. Great. I cannot believe what happened in the second half. I was just, once we speak our Monday morning, we'll talk to Greg Cosell later this week.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking to him about a couple things. He's going to be with us in the offseason. We have something to announce pretty good with Greg. We'll got to hold off until we finalize everything, but he's definitely going to be a part of what we're doing. But because I want to know, Mahomes went up holding on to the ball like crazy in the second half. Like this looked like when he was struggling early to mid-season when they want to change the offense to help him get rid of the football.
Yep.
And it was painful, man. It was, as you said to me in text, and I believe you're on the right path, a little different, but similar to what Russell Wilson would do when he wouldn't take what was there and he'd scramble out and try to make the big play.
Yeah.
This was not good. I do wonder if he just was not taking what was there. That's why Andy, Mike Kafka, particular because he's their passing game coordinator, but Andy because he overall could do what he wants. They changed the way that their passing routes and everything to help Mahomes get rid of the football. Then you saw what happened the second half of this game where they didn't even score a field goal until late in the second half.
Yeah, I got to say, I mean, it started going into halftime when they blew the opportunity to at least get 3 or 7 on that last pass. And I know Andy's taken a hit for that, but I mean, I like when my veteran coach trusts my Super Bowl champion quarterback to be able to not throw the ball in a danger area. And that's exactly what Patrick Mahomes did. I put that way more on Mahomes. I mean, you can tell a guy, look, you got one play. It's in the end zone or it's out of bounds. Like, you don't make that play. And it's one thing if it's a rookie or a guy who's never been in that moment before, then you can come down on the coach. I come down on the quarterback for that. I thought he was very reckless, Patrick Mahomes, in the second half. He did some amazing things in the first half, running the ball and pivoting, and the gift became the curse because he tried to do it way too much. Now, you're right. Maybe guys recovered, but he had opportunities to just throw the ball away. He obviously took a hit and got fumbled there, fumbled at the end. I just thought, in general, I have a hard time. There were times he held on to the ball 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds and couldn't make a play. I have a hard time believing there wasn't something there. I just think he played recklessly, and that's too bad.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed his ascension, and I've kind of hoped that he would challenge Brady as the next great one, and be in the Super Bowl every year and win a few. But that was a major letdown, and that's if you go back to the Super Bowl. I know he had a great divisional round game against the Bills, so I'm not killing the
He
guy,
was
but I'm just
incredible.
saying.
He was incredible. In fact, he had a great first half where he just
Yeah,
picked up
yeah, he
where he
had a
left
great
off.
first half, no doubt, no doubt.
That's
So, but if you go back
why
to
I
the
thought they,
Super Bowl last year, where and that was more on
you
the
know,
offensive
line
line
last
getting
year.
killed in him, but
Yeah,
I was really disappointed with his game there against the Bengals. And
I was.
congratulations to the Bengals, though.
Yeah. Oh, maybe we'll get to them in a second. I just wanted to see Mahomes against Stafford.
Yeah,
And then obviously
I
it'd
did
be
too.
interesting because the Rams moved away from Missouri, St. Louis. It would have been kind of cool to see the Rams play the Chiefs. I don't know, kind of an
Oh
odd
yeah, that would have been
show me
interesting.
state, kind of ex show me state team. But yeah, I was stunned. I mean, I just couldn't understand them, and they are rolling. Michael Harbin finally made a play. They were just absolutely rolling.
Hmm.
You couldn't have made this. There's no way you could predict that this would have happened.
Right.
And they went up losing in overtime. Yet another overtime game. Pretty remarkable. Made two straight overtime games at home. They won, one they lost.
Unbelievable. Ah, that would have been interesting if it was a Kansas City St. Louis thing. What's that? The '85 World Series, Cardinals, Royals.
Yeah, yeah. In
All
fact,
right.
yeah. Oh
I'm
yeah.
older than I
I
look.
know a guy I went to school with, Mark Gubza, was when I
That's
was at
right.
Penn Charter. Mark was part of he was a starter, I think, or relief pitcher. I don't remember if he became a starter at that point.
Right.
He was on there.
I
He
think
has this
so.
World Series ring. I know that, and
Hmm.
that is pretty cool. You're right. Good call by you. That's right.
Yeah, like I said, I'm older than I look. So, yeah, so congrats to the Bengals. As far as the Rams 49ers game, well, at first, Joe Burrow was awesome. We can't move on without saying how great Joe Burrow has been through this playoffs. And he hung in there. He took a lot of hits.
Oh,
I am of the mindset that the Chiefs lost this game, but
yeah.
I've got to give a lot of credit to Joe Burrow, and his wide receivers are fantastic. And that team can actually draft some linemen now and protect Burrow, and they can be pretty good as long as they make the right moves. Now, the thing about the Bengals, Adam, is they're in the same division with the Ravens and the Steelers. So the idea of them becoming like this dynasty is going to be tough because I still think no matter, even though the Steelers are undergoing changes in the quarterback and in the front office, they're still going to be the Steelers until they're proven to not be. So it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of the Bengals like fight it out every year and still be a playoff team and kind of keep building on this, or if they win it all this year, we'll see.
Yeah.
I'd
So
imagine that they won't be the favorite, but we'll see.
yeah. I didn't see the line, but not clearly nonplussed by the matchup. I mean, yeah, Stafford, Burrow, okay, but it wasn't what I wanted. I wanted Mahomes. I wanted Brady. We're not getting
Definitely.
either. I just
I wanted Mahomes Rodgers.
or Rodgers. Yeah, right, exactly. I would have wanted any of that. I just would have wanted just the elite quarterback. Although Stafford's pretty close to elite. I give
Yeah,
him
he's pretty
credit.
good. Yeah.
Cooper Cup was uncoverable except for the one bad drop, which is unlike him. Um, yeah, it's funny. I was talking Sunday and I said to Scott Farrell, I was like, they're going to go after number 20, Ambry Thomas. He's the guy every team I've talked to has played the Niners. They said, we're going, he's got the bullseye. That's who he
Hmm.
got the touchdown against. And they went after him repeatedly.
Yep.
But I don't, it's kind of a weird thing. Like, yeah, the matchup was good, but there was, well, Higbee gets hurt, who got off to a good start in the game. He hasn't returned with a knee injury. That hurt them. Van Jefferson left, then came back. So that's clearly hurt them for pass target availability. I give the Niners credit, man. Their D line is nasty. Aikman was right. They've got a great rotation. Chris Kusarek was a Jim Schwartz disciple. They're one of the few teams that runs a pure wide nine, except for
Hmm.
uh, on base downs. But they want you if you're really paying attention, you see how far out their DNs are. And they did a smart thing. They moved Buckner inside for a lot of this season,
Hmm.
and that and not Buckner, Armstead.
Right.
Buckner was traded to the Colts last year, but um, I give him credit. They and obviously D'Amico Ryans has did a phenomenal job. He will be a head coach someday. If it's not in this cycle, with the Vikings, I think there might be another team in there. He will be one
Hmm.
next year. He's fantastic. And you make a great point. In fact, I was talking to the coach about that, about the Bengals. Like, don't be enamored with the Bengals. They barely got there. They've got a lot of holes. Their offensive line is an embarrassment.
Hmm.
They're not very deep in the secondary corner. Mahomes was basically on pace for 450 yards in the first half. I mean, for the game. They could not get to him until very late. I give him credit though; they did late in the second quarter. In the second half, I
Mm-hmm.
want answers. I want to know what the hell happened with him. I'm
Agree.
disgusted. I'm not even. I don't bet. I'm not a fan. I love high level quarterback play,
Yeah.
and I still barely wanted to see him in the Super Bowl. Oh well, what are you going to do? What are you going to
No, yeah, though well. And to your point on the Niners and the great job that their defense and D'Amico Ryans did, I mean, if you look at the game if you do a box score scout, you'll wonder how in the world the 49ers were even in the game. I mean, Garoppolo, 53%. He had 2 touchdown passes, but he also had a pick. I mean, none of his stats are great, 87 passer rating. They couldn't run the ball. When the 49ers
I
can't run the
know. I
ball, they
know.
ordinarily are not going to be in a game. I mean, that's just they need to run the ball. That's their bread and butter. They ran 20 times for 50 yards.
How do you
Samuel,
explain it?
72 yards. What's that?
No, how do you? It's like how do you
I don't
explain
know
it?
because you're looking at Stafford. He throws for 330. His passer rating 96, 2 touchdowns. Both of their wide receivers, Cup and Beckham, are over 110 yards. It's like, how were the 49ers even in this
Well,
game? But
hey, think about it. If Chakwaski Tart doesn't make that awful drop,
yeah,
okay, Stafford throws it right to him. Awful throw, bad decision. Aikman nailed this. Stafford down the stretch, just he when they the loss of the Niners and they blew the big lead 17-0 in
hmm
week 18, I think it was, for the Niners to get in the playoffs. And then there's like 2 or 3 games before that, he had some bad picks. He's just forcing stuff that wasn't there. And this throw was so bad. I don't know what the hell he was thinking.
right.
They got lucky, but I give coaching matters. Ryan's was tremendous. Jimmy Garoppolo was somewhat efficient. There were some drops in there, some overthrows, underthrows. He's playing with a broken thumb. And you nailed it. When they cannot run, they have no business winning. They should have actually won the game, quite frankly.
Amazingly, right.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
outplayed them, but oh well.
2 very good defenses, though, as opposed to
Yeah,
watching the 2 offenses last week when Buffalo and Kansas City were playing. That was really good line off defensive line play and getting at the quarterback type play and disrupting throws, and I enjoyed that element of the game. So let's on the next pod we'll give a little bit more of a preview of the game. But right now, as you sit here today, if you were a
do that
handicapper,
next week. You mean the following week? We're
I'm
off
sorry,
this
yeah,
week.
next week, right?
The following week.
As we
Yep.
sit here today, though.
Yep.
How would you handicap this game? Like, give me a line. I haven't looked. I haven't seen
My
a line
personal
yet. I don't know
line.
if you have. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
haven't. My personal line because again, how about this is unbelievable. In our lifetime, we knew it was going to happen. So back-to-back Super Bowls where one of the teams is the game's going to be in their home stadium. That's the Rams. It's in
Mm-hmm.
SoFi.
Right.
And last year was in Tampa, and they won. I got to have the Rams 2.5. Again, I haven't even looked at the line yet. I will.
Wow. Okay. 2.5.
Well,
All right.
again, they're technically at home. I know this. I understand that the NFL handles the tickets distribution, but it's still
Yeah.
in their home stadium. They are at home. Um, they have a better roster. I think it's tight. I think it's tight. I think it's a fairly even game. A little Stafford obviously is better experience, so I'd lean towards him. It's funny if you rank the teams that I trust the least in the NFL, it'd be the Chargers, Rams, and Bengals. And here we are.
There you go. I think if I were handicapping it, I would have it a little bigger. I would probably have the Rams at very least 3.5. And
Mm-hmm.
I might just looking at the matchups, the way the Rams are so strong on the D line. I mean, and how weak the Bengals can be
I
on the
know.
O
I hear
line.
you.
I might consider 5.5, but definitely at least 3.5.
Let me look. Let
Because
me
it's
look at
home
DK.
for them technically, and it's like a little
Here it
bit
is.
more.
Yeah,
Oh,
here it
you
is.
got it. All right.
Yep. On DraftKings, our sponsor.
Okay.
Rams are -4 and 49.5.
So right between what I was saying, 3.5 and 5.5.
Yeah,
So
no, it's a good
4.
call by
Okay.
you. Yeah, I the only thing is because the Rams, and we have to see it. Higbee's injury. They've got some injuries, but they don't hold leads real well. That does concern me. They really
Mm-hmm.
should have lost to the Bucks, quite frankly. I mean, that would have been one of the all-time chokes. They got outplayed in the second half of that game. They barely held on. They gave up. They had a +3 touchdown lead, and they remember they gave it up, and then they
Yeah.
were able to win late. But I don't trust them. I don't trust the Bengals. It's a fun game. No, it is Burrow and Stafford. McVay and a disciple, Zach Taylor. How about that?
Yep. I'm sure that'll be a big storyline for the next 2 weeks.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. And
oh
as we
yeah.
sit here today, I kind of like the Rams to win, probably by like 10.
Really?
I think they're gonna overwhelm Cincinnati in the
Oh, because of their
trenches.
line.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I really do.
All right.
So all right, let us move on. We got some interesting things to talk about. First, there was a departure with the Eagles front office. We'll get into that. We broke the news on Thursday night, and also one of the heroes from the divisional. I'm sorry, the conference championship was Cooper Kupp, and he's going to come back up in this podcast in a little bit as you get ready for the Senior Bowl. This week, everybody's got to be on the lookout. We did an hour. We teased to this about a week ago, but we finally got it done. We did an hour Inside the Birds TV interview with former Vikings general manager Rick Spielman. And you're thinking to yourself, well, why do I want to hear Rick Spielman? He's a Vikings GM. Well, A, we've got a lot of listeners who, like the NFL, not just the Birds. And B, as we went through with Rick, there are a lot of Vikings Eagles crossover storylines over the last 4 years, from obviously the NFC Championship game to the year before the Sam Bradford trade to just 2 years ago, the Eagles picking Jalen Reagor and the Minnesota Vikings picking Justin Jefferson, and all that in between. There's even more history between these two teams and more storylines. And we went really deep with Rick on all of that, and he didn't hold back on anything. So it was a fascinating interview. And then we also just asked him, like we do when we have Bill Polian on or Joe Banner or other GMs, former GMs, we asked him about his process as far as analytics, as far as drafting, free agency, assembling a team, a coaching staff. It was great. Adam, I give you a lot of credit. You were able to get him on for us, and it was a fantastic interview, well worth making it an hour.
And I promise you it will not be the last one. We're going to talk to Rick about doing something together, three of us. You did a good job of giving a preview there. There's some stuff you didn't talk about. I'm glad, which we'll see what the reaction is to some of the stuff that's on. That's kind of funny. But no, we're going to get into the best part about this interview, which is about somewhere around an hour. Sure, there's Eagle stuff, but it's so much way. We don't just do Eagles, in the offseason. We do Eagles is the main focus, but we're an NFL show. I mean, we're an intel show, so we want to bring in how you scout, how you pick players. We want everyone to learn. This is the whole genesis of Inside the Birds. Is we're not a cheerleader show. We're here to teach you the game best we can, and we get the people who've done it and been there. So getting Rick doing it, we really thank him. This is fantastic. And I got one more guy that we're going to look at talking to, who's the Super Bowl winning personnel guy that I texted on Sunday. Nice. He said he'd be happy to do it, but we got to figure it. The scheduling is so difficult,
right?
For these guys to get these guys to be available. So, but hey, no, we appreciate Rick doing it. He's going to be back with us again. We just have to figure out where and when and how.
I love it. All right, we will have that Tuesday morning. It'll be up on the podcast and YouTube platform, so make sure you check that out when you get a chance. All right, big news for the Eagles over the past week is that they lost a significant member of their personnel department. Ian Cunningham, who was the director of player personnel for the Eagles, left to become basically Ryan Poles' right-hand man, assistant GM out there in Chicago for the Bears as they rebuild with the former Chiefs executive Ryan Poles as their new general manager. We reported it Thursday night. I think here's what's interesting.
It. Just so you know, they announced it.
They did announce it. Yes, it's official. Yep. Here's what's interesting. Poles and Cunningham are close, as we reported on Twitter and then in the story on InsideTheBirds.com. But they did not, unlike a lot of times you see guys pull guys that they worked with along the way, these two guys did not work together in the NFL at any point. The closest that you're able to kind of see some connection is that they both played Big East football. I think Poles played for Boston College and Ian played offensive line in Virginia. Either that or I just flip-flopped it. But either way, they were both college offensive linemen. But, scouts and personnel people get to know each other on the trail when they're out there scouting. And so Ian's gone. Now, Adam, I don't know if this was intentional. The Eagles knew that this was intentional. The Eagles knew there was a chance they were going to lose Ian. At least 2 years ago, they knew it because just last year, he had interviewed with Carolina for an executive job because
it's actually for the GM job. It's actually for the GM job.
It was the GM job. Was it? Okay. So I thought it was assistant GM. Okay, GM.
No,
job. That Scott Fitterer got, right?
Yep.
Okay. So they knew it. You've heard Jeffrey Lurie say we've got about 5 GM candidates in our front office, and he mentioned Ian as one of them. Right. But what's interesting is Ian had sort of the same title as Brandon Brown does. They were kind of co-director of player personnel.
Actually, same one. Yeah.
Right. So I've never. It's very rare that you see that. So people
I
are
know.
wondering, like, how do you replace this guy? Well, they actually have
Co-director.
him do it right, and then he also did a lot of college scouting. When he was hired by Joe Douglas to the Eagles office from the Ravens chain, he was the director of college scouting. But for the longest time, for almost 20 years now, they've had Anthony Patch working here, and Anthony Patch is their senior director of college scouting. So in some ways, the Eagles set up their front office structure to be able to lose Ian without necessarily having to find somebody to replace all the responsibilities, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Well, they could divvy up because on these, there's two departments in their scouting. They've got the football operations one under Roseman, general
Mm-hmm.
manager, and his people. Catherine Rach, who interviewed for the Vikings GM job, and others. And then you've got the scouting part with Andy Weidel and his group, Wes Cunningham, Brandon Brown, Anthony Patchy mentioned, who's the senior director of college scouting, Alan Walking, who's been with the Eagles for seemingly forever. Now, what could happen, because people were wondering, okay, well, Cunningham had a pretty significant job. What will they do to divvy it up? Well, Dave Caldwell, who's a personnel executive, I do wonder, because Roseman's known him for many years, he brought him in, sort of like a quasi-consultant, personnel executive. That could mean anything. It's just a general, as you've said many times, and we know this for fact. That doesn't mean nothing with NFL teams. It's what do they actually do?
Right.
So you have to really get to the heart of it. So, and Caldwell's been a GM, so who knows? He could take on more responsibility. Brandon Brown's he also interviewed for the GM job of the Vikings. I think it was, yeah. He's also he's highly thought of by the group. So, maybe someone else gets more responsibility.
We shall see. Now, we'll also it's pretty common to see Howie Roseman and Andy Weidel bring in guys when they lose guys. Again, they don't have to. They haven't always matched a guy with or a person, I should say, with someone that they've lost. But sometimes they've also added people to the personnel department, whether or not they lost someone. Howie's big on, we've talked about guys like Dave Caldwell, who's working with them now, right? Before that, it was, why can't I remember his name?
John Dorsey.
Kansas City. John Dorsey, right? I mean, it's been Phil Savage going back that way.
Yeah,
Andrew Brandt. Right. Andrew Brandt's worked alongside him, and I feel like I'm missing another.
Well, Andrew Brandt was only for contracts. He had nothing to do with scouting.
No, I'm just talking about bringing people into the front office who have experience somewhere else.
Actually, Joe Banner brought in Andrew Brandt.
Was it Joe? Okay.
Yes. No, but your point's absolutely right. He brought in Phil. That was somewhere around 2012. Because I know he was in the he was in the room when Nick Foles was drafted. There were I know that.
Andrew Berry. That's another one.
Andrew Berry. Yeah, that's a great. Now there you go on the Jeffrey Lurie line about GM people. Yeah, there's no doubt. Look, this is. What's interesting. The Eagles, okay, they got in the playoffs. They lost. We knew that they weren't going to go very far. But it's interesting how this staff is viewed. Obviously, very strongly. The thing that did shock me was, I shouldn't say shock, surprisingly, Andy Weidel didn't get an interview. He's the highest of the group, of the scouting group. How did you not get an interview?
I don't know. And it's not just this cycle. I mean, he didn't get one last cycle either, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, Joe Douglas brought Andy Weidel to Philadelphia. Yeah. Just like Ian Cunningham, but Andy had the higher position. Basically, it was Howie 1, Joe 2, Andy 3, back when Joe reshaped the scouting department. Then Joe left for the Jets, and Howie promoted Andy Weidel to his spot, to kind of like number 2 behind Howie. Yeah. And it is a little surprising that he hasn't gotten a little bit more, looks around the league. There are a bunch of guys who from personnel down to coaching, I'm shocked nobody has even just brought into an interview Jeff Stoutland. I mean, doesn't that shock you that nobody would want to interview a guy who's just churned out offensive lineman and offensive lineman? Plus, he's known as kind of like a player-friendly, like connect with everyone guy. Some offensive line coaches, that they're basically just offensive line coaches, right? But you can tell that Stout is a connectivity type of guy, high energy type of guy, a leader of men type of guy.
Well, here again, but how many, other than Mike Munchak, how many guys have been head coaches? It's rare.
That is true. That's fair. There have not been Tom Cable and Mike Munchak, really, right?
Right. Tom Cable was, it didn't go over very well, but that's really it. But I like your point is well taken, because obviously everyone watching knows how great Jeff Stoutland is. The guy's pretty special, one of the best O-line coaches of his day. The other thing is, teams sometimes do this. I'm not saying they would do this with Stoutland, but teams will sometimes bring in a guy they have no interest in hiring, but they want to know. Al Davis was famous for this. He just wanted intel.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to know, hey, how do you do this? How do you coach this? Whatever. I mean, they do
That's
this.
what I'm.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
another thing that surprises me, that you don't bring in Stoutland just to sort of tap into the well and say what's your philosophy? What's your process about? Just to do a little intel.
How do you churn these guys out? Where did you find this rugby player? How the hell did?
Yeah.
That's what. Oh, what does Howie Roseman do? Why is he so successful with offensive linemen? Is it just you? Is it Roseman? Is it you both? Is it your pro staff? Your college? Like, who the hell is finding these guys, and how do you develop them? How do we all miss, on this rugby player?
There you go. There you go. Well, we'll see what happens with the Bears. I feel like they're in pretty good hands. They get a guy who is well respected from the Kansas City chain, and then a guy who's in Ian, who's well respected from both the Eagles and Baltimore chain. Can't get enough of that Baltimore chain. I've got a close eye on what's going to happen with the Steelers now that Kevin Colbert is stepping down. I mean, he, in my opinion, has been the best GM in football over the last 15 years. A fantastic scout. We already know how good they are at replenishing talent. Now, they've got two guys in that front office, as you know, who are different but are very, very talented at what they do. There's Brandon Hunt, who at one point the Eagles wanted to take a look at. I don't think they ever interviewed him, but he was on their radar when Chip Kelly was looking for a right-hand man.
Correct.
And then Omar Khan, who is a really interesting type, sort of Howie-ish in his ability to do scouting, but also football administration and contracts.
Really it's really
yeah. Well, some Steelers tell me that he knows his football. He
wanted to, right. He wanted to learn scouting, but he wasn't. He didn't have the desire to be like a person. My understanding from talking to people who know him, he didn't have. Howie Roseman wanted to be a GM and a personnel guy, though he didn't play as a kid. Where Omar, does contracts, and I know people who know him very well told me over the years he had more of an interest as time would go by to learn personnel. But he's also, Omar's had interviews to be a GM, actually, several. Probably
so knowing the Steelers the way that I do, they will try to figure out a way to retain both of those guys, give them good titles, and have them work together and keep that kind of Steeler mentality in place. That's what they normally do. But if either one of them leaves, that would be very interesting, and we'll see what happens with them. All right. I mentioned Cooper Kupp, right? And how he has just dominated dominated the year. He could be the MVP in the league when all is said and done. But this is a guy, Adam, that makes people get excited about this time of the year for the Senior Bowl, because most people didn't know who Cooper Kupp was until he blew it up at the Senior Bowl, 6-7 years ago now? God, has it been that long?
Seems like 2015, maybe 6, whatever the heck.
This is his fifth year in the league, I think. So
gotta be long. Actually, he signed it. I think it's the only reason why I think it's longer because he's had his contract extended once, and quite frankly, he's probably outplayed it. He almost had 2,000 yards this year.
Yeah, that's crazy to think, but yeah.
I know you're right. How's he only 17?
I'm telling you,
he just finished his 5th year. Wow, it would seem like it's more than that. Well, he's definitely outplayed his contract. Holy smokes!
Tell me what you remember about his Senior Bowl that year.
He dominated. The issue was this. There were actually two issues. Was he an inside player and an outside player? He played at Eastern Washington, which is actually, there were 3 issues with him. Eastern Washington, you'd scratch your head to find anyone who's ever played the NFL who played at that school. And you didn't know how fast he was. Now, as my friend Torrey Holt would say, I remember hearing Torrey would come on Sirius XM and talk about him. And Kupp is so sudden with his movements. His route running is he's the best route runner in football. Him and Devontae Adams. We could all argue, subjective, but we could argue, debate who the better route runner is.
Sure.
Cooper Kupp is so explosive with the ball in his hands, and he's a perfect West Coast offensive guy because running after the catch is just absurd. He does turn 29 in June. He was an older player when he was drafted by the Rams, a little older, 23, 24, but he is the best receiver in football right now. I mean, he's maybe one of the 5 best players that aren't quarterbacks. And that includes his teammate Aaron Donald. He's unbelievable. He's unstoppable.
His concentration through a contested catch scenarios and his ability to catch the ball in traffic. And some are great at catching the ball in traffic and just turning upfield, and not like a Tyreek Hill has the best change of direction I have ever seen in any wide receiver ever. Best change of direction. He's just superhuman in that regard. But Coop he's just really good at fighting through the contact and then just absorbing a hit, but keeping his momentum going, like that huge third down catch he had before they went ahead. I mean, that was Cooper Kupp in a nutshell right there, man. He's just so strong and shifty, and he does everything right. It's great. You're right. Him and Devontae Adams are very similar in their ability to just get the football and go.
Kupp runs a little better than Adams, but the thing that I just wasn't sure. He wound up being a third-round pick because I forget, his time speed wasn't great, but he had to overcome small school. There were some challenges for him, but if you just graded the tape, he should have been a second-round pick. I was shocked based on what I saw that week in Mobile in 2017 that he was not a second-round pick, but he wasn't. To be a first-round pick at receiver, you have to be able to play on the outside. Teams weren't. I don't have the stats in front of me where he lines up all the time, like percentage-wise, inside or outside. We know he plays a lot inside. Right. But it's just so dynamic. He could ask the Bucs if he could run deep. Hello, it's just ridiculous. He's a special football player. He's headed to be a Hall of Famer at this. He's on a Hall of Fame pace.
Yeah,
and we're going to get into Senior Bowl scouting in a minute. I've got between Geoff and I. We've probably been to Senior Bowl 50 times. No, but between the two of us, we've been there a lot. This will be my 19th. My first Senior Bowl, I got the roster out just to give you a sampling. One of the guys that I saw at that 2002 Senior Bowl just interviewed for a head coaching job in the National Football League. Who do you think that would be?
Just kind of your first Senior Bowl?
Yes.
Just happened?
Yes.
Just kind of Bill Belichick. No, I don't know.
No. 2002.
2002?
Yep, you might be able to get it.
Oh man!
Don't make me give you the hint. Then you're going to get it immediately. I just gave it away. It's an Eagles tie. Eagles tie.
Wait, in 2002?
Yeah, but there's an Eagles tie some point of his career. Come on.
I don't know.
Josh McCown.
Josh McCown.
Wearing the goofy ass helmet. I'm about photographic memory for things from years ago. So he's wearing this orange helmet with this goofy logo. I never heard of Sam Houston State. That he put Sam Houston State on the map.
Yep.
He had a great week. He's super athletic. Here's how the Senior Bowl can help a player. This is part of what we're going to talk about today. This guy changed positions. He was a quarterback at IU. He changed positions at the Senior Bowl in 2002. Greatest guy, great dude. This guy wound up being drafted, I believe, in the second round because of what he would have been probably a fifth or sixth round pick at best had he not changed positions. He blew it up this week. I saw every catch that week. I remember writing about it for Scout.com back in 2002. Antoine Randall, unbelievable week.
Oh, I remember Antoine Randall. Yep. He was a weapon.
Yep, he became
not surprisingly a good stealer, right? I mean, that's the team that gave him because Hines Ward was there, and then they knew they had the magic formula on that one.
And another guy, major Eagle ties, a friend of ours, friend of the program, the great B West.
Oh, Brian Westbrook from Villanova.
Yep. Right?
Yeah.
Other names of note: Lamar Gordon, who played running back in the league for a bit.
Sure.
Looking for here you go. And I forgot about this. How did it's funny, I've never mentioned this before. I'm dumb. Michael Lewis.
So you're saying Michael Lewis was on the map because of the Senior Bowl? I didn't remember.
Well, he had a good he was there I'm reasonably sure it's the same Michael Lewis out of Colorado. I'll double check.
Yeah, that would have to be the one.
Yeah, I don't know who else it could be.
Right.
A couple more here. Hang on, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, there have been some good ones over the last few years, like Quinn Meinerz, the belly,
who's
played right guard for the Broncos this year.
Right. Meinerz was, and without the Senior Bowl, it's not even close. No,
I'll tell you one. Ali Marpet from the right guard from Hobart. He went to the Senior Bowl. I know, it's amazing. He went to the Right. That's where he really kind of stormed onto the scene.
Some other name. This is how great. Okay, I'm going to roll through these names. These are those of you who really follow the NFL for years. Larry Foote, who's been a longtime NFL assistant coach, linebackers coach.
Yep.
Played at Michigan, played for the Cardinals and Steelers for many years. Other names you guys would recognize. Oh, I was wrong on this guy, Jonathan Wells from Ohio State. He was a power back. I thought he'd make it. He had a great week. He made it. I mean, he was drafted by the Texans, but he wasn't in the league for very long. Liddell Betts.
Oh, I remember Liddell Betts.
Mm-hmm.
Was he a tight end?
No, running back.
That's right. Running back, Liddell Betts.
Oh, okay. Ben Lieber. I know Ben. Just sidelined for the Vikings.
He was a linebacker for the Vikings, I believe.
Eagles. He tried out for the Eagles before he retired. Oh, wow. This guy will be in the Hall of Fame if he hasn't been, or I can't remember if he is. This guy dominated. Dwight Freeney was unstoppable that week at Syracuse.
Oh, he was pretty unstoppable in the NFL too.
That first step. Oh, and this guy was a would-be Eagle, but he never did it because he signed with the Browns. Forget it.
Oh, don't even say it. LaCharles Bentley.
LCB. Yep.
Yeah, I remember that. And then he tore his knee up.
Yep. Chester Pitts. I know Chester. He had a great week that helped him out of San Diego State. He was a trumpet player, I think, or sax player. Forget. And then, good dude. Oh, Daniel Graham, who was a first-round pick for the Patriots, I think.
Yep, I remember him.
Brett Kiesel. Remember Brett Kiesel?
Oh, yeah, Steelers defensive end. Tough guy,
Yep, right. Yeah. The other Adrian Peterson was the joke on Sirius XM Fantasy, who was also a running back at Georgia Southern.
Yep.
Patrick Ramsey. David Carr was the first pick overall.
There you go.
Sheldon Brown.
It's not often that you see the number 1 overall pick at the Senior Bowl.
Carson Palmer didn't, right? Because some say I'm not going to go, but they went up going. Right. Deion Branch, great guy. A great week that helped him. Oh, all right, here you go. This is a good one. This is a trivia question.
Okay.
For many years, he was the only Alabama player that was drafted by the Eagles for almost 2 decades.
Was it Dennis Riddle or something?
Freddie Millins.
Oh, Freddie Millins. That's right. That's what I meant. Freddie Millins.
Yeah. Before we get Deshaun Foster, remember him running long back?
Yeah, Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, right.
I pinned my fantasy football hopes on him one year, and I remember him getting off to a huge start, or either he had a great year, and then the next year he was not very good.
Oh, another Eagle who I did a couple interviews with on radio. Another guy.
I love how excited you are about this.
I love it because I just remember being in total awe of this thing when I was there. Like, this is like, because it's before the media found out about it. There'd be like 10 of us. Now there might be like 300 media people. Here we go. I'm going to finish this off. Will Witherspoon had played for the Eagles. Remember him?
Yeah. He was traded from the Rams to the Eagles.
Was he? I know he played. I just forgot. Oh, Kendall Simmons, who played for the Steelers, a longtime lineman. Oh, now this is cool. DK Metcalf's dad, Terrence Metcalf.
That's right. For the Falcons, wide receiver, correct?
No, he's a.
No, I'm thinking Terrence Mathis. Terrence Metcalf played guard. Tell me. Guard. That's right. Right.
Then Robert Royal, I met a couple years ago at a golf tournament out of LSU.
That's the former Broncos wide receiver. Oh, no, I'm thinking Eddie
tight
end.
He's a tight end.
The tight end. Yeah.
And then anything? Kenyon Coleman, who played in the league for a while. That was it. But it just to be able to see these guys up close. So let's get into the weeds here. So, people always ask. Actually, we talked to Rick Spielman about this. Like, what is the value, Jeff, when you would go? And we both probably had our things that we look for.
Mm-hmm.
Me personally, I'm there to network, with sources and because I just don't get to see anyone. Plus, with the COVID issue, it's hard to get in front of people. But we would go for that, for better sourcing. And then I remember one year, because I knew that McNabb was on the block, so I reported from the Senior Bowl the Eagles are talking to teams about McNabb. Then Sal Powell was nice enough to quote me on it, and he actually called me about it before I went to ESPN. I think I was working for Scout.com.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where players could shop. This is the start of the trading season, where they have discussions. Like, the GMs will go up to them, and they'll do other GMs. They'll sit and talk. And so, it's hard to find them. And by the way, the Senior Bowl is no longer at Lad People Stadium. They moved it to South Alabama, the University of South Alabama, which is close. Mm-hmm. But I don't, I heard the access was actually decent last year. Not a lot of people showed up because of COVID.
Right.
But hopefully the access will be better. So would you feel like you were able to get a lot out of it?
Well, so I think I've been to 2 Senior Bowls, and I had different experiences. My first one, sort of like my first combine, I felt very, very conflicted, because as you're mentioning, you got practice going on the field, and you want to be able to watch practice, but you realize that at that point in the offseason, free agency and what the team is doing, and whether or not they hired and fired a coach. And in fact, I think my first or second one was when they hired Chip Kelly. So we at CSN, I broke new. I broke a story. They had hired, I think, Dave Phipp. I think Tim McManus and I both were on at the same time because we were both talking to Joe Philbin at the same time. I don't know why. I think the Eagles had already hired one coach who was a former Dolphin or had worked for Philbin either in
Oh, for
Green Bay
Chip
or
Kelly's
somewhere.
staff.
Yeah, on Chip Kelly's staff. And then
Yeah.
Philbin said, "Oh yeah, and you guys will like Dave Phipp too. He's going to be a great special teams coordinator." And Tim and I just looked at each other. We're like, "Wait, what?" so that was kind of how we
Oh,
figured
wow, he
out that.
gave it out?
Yeah, I don't think he even realized that it wasn't really out
Oh,
there
that's
yet.
a great. He's such a nice guy, Joe Philbin. Wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
and it was funny because some guys were walking around. Chip did not make any
Oh.
announcements on his coaching staff until like May, right?
So
it was the Senior Bowl, and he has guys walking around with Eagles jerseys on, or not sweaters representing the Eagles.
Yeah.
Then we're like, all right, we have to figure out who this person is because
Well,
we
here's
had no
the
idea.
problem. So I remember John Fox. I ran into him. So John Fox, he was interviewing for head coaching jobs back in. It might have been like I'd have to look up the timeline. Might have been 04, 05, 03, whatever the year was. He was interviewing for jobs, and it was much harder to get head coaching scoops than it is now. It's actually pretty easy. Agents give it out.
Sure.
Coach might give it. Whoever it is, the team gives it out. But so he purposely took his Giant stuff up, and you wouldn't know what he was doing. There wasn't out that he was interviewing for jobs yet, but he was not wearing Giant stuff then. So, and then the other thing is, let's say you mentioned, okay, a guy gets a new job, right? Sometimes they'd wear the new polo shirt for the new team. Sometimes they wouldn't. So you walk right by the guy. The guy just got hired. You wouldn't even know it.
Right.
So it's cool. It's called the Unofficial Coaches Convention. It's kind of sad.
Yes.
I won't mention some of the names, but you and I know some coaches we've seen year after year looking for work.
Yeah. I mean, they're really working at trying to get a job. But I do remember that. Yeah. Actually, to amend my earlier story, I do remember now, there was a rumor that Dave Phipp was going to join the Eagles staff. It had not been confirmed or anything, and nor do we know under what. Tim and I ran into him, and we saw him wearing an Eagles sweater. So we both started talking to him. We tried to have like an icebreaker conversation first, just to introduce ourselves. And he's great. He's a great guy, Dave Phipp. So we're like, look, can we confirm you're the special teams coordinator? And if you remember, again, Chip was not making any announcements, and the team was making no confirmations, and that had been relayed to everybody. So Dave said, look, I really enjoyed meeting with you guys, but I don't want to get in any trouble. I can't say anything.
Yeah.
I can't confirm. I just can't. And we're like trying to teach him the journalism way. We're like, Dave, we won't say you said it. We'll just say sources. He's like, look, I can't. So we're like,
oh, okay. No, you can say, well, Dave, but you're wearing sweater, sweatshirt.
Well, we did bring that up that he goes, I know how ridiculous it looks, but I just don't want any name or any kind. So Tim and I are like, okay, we'll figure this thing out. So then we saw Joe Philbin after practice, and we both went up to Joe, who at that has no idea what the Eagles policy is at the time, right? So Tim and I are like, hey, Joe, nice to meet you. We told him who we are. We're like, so Dave Phipp, what should the Eagles expect about him? And Joe's like, oh, he's going to be a great special team. And he just got like, thank you. We're writing it down. Like, thank you, Joe Philbin.
There is value. And, I told the story before where literally, I put it was Andy Reid's staff. I think it was Andy Reid's staff. I put out that this coach was fired. 5 minutes later, I see him.
That must.
I stopped. I was like, oh my god! I walked the other way. I was like, my heart was beating like 1,000 beats per minute. I was like super nervous. I usually,
sure,
feel bad.
Sure. No, that's got to be very awkward. Yeah.
It's awkward as hell. Yeah, I mean, I saw the guy in the bathroom, but anyway, it's weird. I was like, get the hell out of there. Go ahead.
The point was, I was conflicted the first time because there's so much hard news that you're going after and you're trying to, as you said, you have free reign. As long as you're someone respects you to just sit down and talk to any coach or executive or whoever out there. So I found myself doing that and then not really seeing what was going on the field. And then the second time I went was for Comcast. I'm working for CSN, and their kind of agenda is, well, we have footage of so-and-so working out. And so I kind of have to know a little bit more about the college guy. I wound up hanging out with Trey Thomas and Deuce in the stands for a little while. So I got to talk football with them, but then I was asking them what they liked about certain guys. So I got my quote unquote, football, so I can go out there and speak about the guys for
That's
literally
awesome intel.
Yeah.
Awesome
and honestly, it was secondary to the intel you're getting in, just in general, or just being able to sit next to Deuce and Trey and talk football with them. Right.
Sure.
That was awesome as well. So the second time I balanced it a little bit more and was able to do a little bit both. Those were long days. It's like you're doing all this, Eagle stuff, and then you have to sit there and write about prospects. So they were great days, but they were very, very long days. Good thing Mobile has some pretty decent nightlife to be able to go out and get a drink after you're all done. And then you wind up running into all the guys that you were talking to in the stadium. They're just out.
Funny story. Funny story. There's so many crazy Super Bowl stories, Senior Bowl stories I have. Because I didn't know what I was doing the first year. There was no information, so I stupidly stayed for the game. We're going to explain why you don't go to the game. It is very little value to teams. It's about the practices. Anyone in scouting will tell you the same thing they told me. Of course, I didn't ask this the first year. I should have. I go. I'm like a kid. I don't know anything. So there's no guide. So I went. I stayed the whole week like an idiot. You don't do that. You leave. Everybody leaves Thursday morning. I'm leaving Thursday morning.
Yep.
But the first two. So basically, no. I used to go to the weigh-ins. It's actually pretty kind of cool. You'll see before NFL Network covered it in ESPN. It was kind of cool. Like you get to see like for instance, we're gonna get pure measurements. Like Bailey Zappi's a kid we're gonna talk about in a minute. Who there's some questions about his size. The first measurements will not come to the combine. They're going to come here at the Senior Bowl. This is important. And we'll get Kenny Pickett's hand size. That's important. So we're going to get that stuff this week. So, by the way, the Jets and Lions staffs will coach. There's a very famous story. I've actually talked about this before. Probably not. In fact, I didn't talk about it on this show, but I saw it because I was there. It was the Lions staff. It was Charles Haley and Carl Malk. Carl Malk played in the NFL in the 70s, maybe early 80s, probably 70s. Long time NFL assistant coach, and they were on Marty Mornhinweg's staff, and Haley and Malk got into it, and it happened right in front of us. Like you couldn't make it up. What are they doing? What the hell are they doing? Right. I was just, this is not happening. Like it's a freaking Senior Bowl. What are you doing? And it's Charles Haley and Carl Malk, not surprised, and they broke.
That's what I was going to say. Not surprising, right there.
right. But some of the stuff that you mentioned, the nightlife, kind of like the it's a little different because it's a very small area.
Yes.
Across from the Player Hotel, and there's what's the place?
Vietz.
What's it called?
What, the bar? Vietz?
Vietz. Yeah. I didn't go for I'm not going to get into why I didn't go there for the first 7 or 8 years. I thought it was a biker. I don't know what kind of bar. It looked pretty rough to me, so I didn't go in there. And then like all these scouting people, like, why aren't you going in there? I'm like, I don't know. I thought it was a biker bar. It looked like
it ain't like St. Elmo at the Combine. We're in Indianapolis. Right. It does.
No, it's not like St. Elmo.
It's really awesome though.
Steak place, but this is Vietz is the where the scouts go, and I remember seeing Chip Kelly there in jeans and a sweatshirt with no team on it, just drinking a beer. It was but all right.
I remember seeing the McKenzie brothers, Raleigh McKenzie and Reggie McKenzie. One was the GM of the Raiders at the time. One was with the Packers, and I was like, "Oh my god, I really don't know which one." They're
exactly because one of them has red hair.
Yep.
And I get them mixed up, and I know both have talked. One of them goes to Raleigh, who played for the Eagles in the mid '90s, goes to Rutgers golf tournament every year, so I see him.
Right.
I think he was a scout for the Dolphins. I think Reggie might have been with the Dolphins this past season. But anyway, to move this along here.
Yeah.
So Jets and Lions staff. Lions have been there a bunch of times. Every top senior will be out there at quarterback. So here you go. Coached by the Jets. Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati is going to be a mid-round pick at best. Could help himself, though. A lot of quarterbacks get pushed up. Kenny Pickett, who's going to be a first-round pick. Did you just say
Ridder's going to be a mid-round pick at best?
Yeah, the early word is mid-round. I don't. When I say third round, I think that's kind of. I would be surprised if he went higher than that.
All right, I sort of disagree, but okay.
Yeah, Kenny Pickett's going to go first.
We'll see. Okay,
sure. Carson Strong, I don't know. I mostly don't know where these guys are going yet. It's way too early. There's no consensus yet. This is. I hate to say this because we're still going to probably see like 4 to 5 quarterbacks go in the top 50. But it's an average to above average senior class. It's not great, but you know what? You never know. Kirk Cousins, who was a 4th-round pick, who had a great Senior Bowl week. You never know in 2012. You just never know because this is the first 2 days. So tomorrow, which is Tuesday, is the first day of practice. They're back-to-back practices. The weigh-ins, I'm guessing, are Tuesday morning. That's the way they used to do it because they would practice the same day as the weigh-ins. Today, Tuesdays, clear weather. It almost, as you know, almost rains every time I go.
Yeah, that's that part of Alabama in
Yeah,
in January, February. Yeah.
yeah, it's tough. So the way it's going to be is Tuesday, Wednesday, the most important practice. Thursday is the light practice, like a Friday NFL practice for a Friday game.
Hmm.
Friday's a walkthrough. Saturday's the game. The practice will be on NFL Network. I'm taping them as I'm being there. I'll watch them when I get back. But getting back to quarterbacks, Ritter from Cincinnati, Kenny Pickett, Carson Strong, Bailey Zappi, who's put up a monster amount of yards, but people are trying to think, is he a run and shoot quarterback? Is he
Right.
a product of just these systems? Most people believe that I've talked to so far, but hey, he's a senior quarterback. He's going to be there. He can only help himself. This
Hmm.
staff is coached by these quarterbacks are coached by the Lions, Zappi, Western Kentucky, Sam Howell from North Carolina, Malik Willis. A lot of people are on from Liberty. As I'll give you a nugget from if you haven't heard it yet, actually won't hear it till Tuesday. Rick Spielman, we asked him this: what's the value of the Senior Bowl? And one of the things he gives out, and I totally get it, is the value of seeing small school quarterbacks and small school players.
Sure.
Ricardo Coakley, do you remember Ricardo Coakley, who was a second round pick of the Steelers? Corner.
Vaguely, yeah.
He was before the draft, before the Senior Bowl. I was told no better fifth round. He went off that week. He was the best player on the field of non-quarterback. He was incredible. He was a second round pick. Now, wound up being a bad pick by whoever the GM was. I don't know if it was Tom Donahoe or not. He
Hmm.
was a major disappointment. He just got overdrafted because of the Senior Bowl. And
Right.
that is the thing at the scouting process you worry about, the Danny Watkins situation where he's an absolute man. He was incredible, tossing guys around, throwing them like they're feathers, like they're nobody.
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
he gets overdrafted. And you worry about stuff like that.
Yeah, that's happened before. In fact, we can probably point to a few recent examples of that. Before we do that, let's download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the promo code ITB to get 56 to 1 odds on any team, of course, in the NFL. And really, there's only 2 teams left. So bet just $5 and 200, you get 280 in free bets if your team wins using promo code ITB at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 56. Of course, you got to be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Adam, let's pause real quick for another word from our great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you stop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. So, Adam, for the longest time, for a while, Brandon Graham is a guy who had a great
Yep.
Senior Bowl, and the Eagles traded up for him, and he had a couple of disappointing years with an injury, his first 3 years, and how he got kind of killed for getting that
Oh,
Senior Bowl riser, and it really wasn't the. I mean, listen, they left Earl Thomas there, and
mm-hmm.
that's what really made fans
And
mad more than
JPP,
anything.
Earl Thomas Moore, you're right, but
Right.
JPP, people were killing him, and
Right, because then
I
they
would
went and
argue,
won the Super Bowl with JPP about a year or 2 later, so it didn't
okay,
look good. Now
right,
Brandon's developed it wound up working for them, but they have generally, like Carson Wentz, I mean, you can say it didn't work out in the end, but it was a good pick at number 2
oh
overall. I
yeah,
mean, you won a Super Bowl, he won you 12 games that year, things went awry for other reasons, but that was a guy who really boosted his stock. There's an offensive lineman who boosted his stock a couple of years ago, Forrest something, but I don't think he's been that
Forrest
great in the
Lamp,
NFL.
yeah, Forrest Lamp. What
Yeah,
happened to his ACL? He was
that's
never
right.
the same, unfortunately. Yeah, and man, I saw some injuries. One guy tore his ACL corner many years ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago. So let me ask you this: so you said
Mhm.
you're only there twice, but when you're watching practice, do you enjoy it? What'd you get out of it?
Yeah, so I think I realize why people, as you mentioned, they're there, they leave before the game. Why does the game not matter? Well, the game, it's not that it doesn't matter, but as you were saying, you've got a billion wide receivers, tight ends, corners, safeties, and these guys in the course of a game are in and out. Like you don't get to see, you're watching certain plays and you don't get to see if that wide receiver ran a really good route. But in practice, it's all you get the eyes on everybody. The one-on-one drills, you get a real chance to see how competitive someone is. These small school guys, you really want to see them line up against the bigger school guys, whether it's offensive lineman on defensive lineman or wide receiver on a corner or whatever, and see if they can hold their own. The leadership element, I think, really stands out during those practices. I think they give an award for the best leader or something like that. They give a couple awards throughout the week for best practice guy. So it's those type of things, not just intangibles, but even your technique, who gets to the line first when it's time for drills, like your desire, everything, your toughness, your skill set. Those are all much more discernible by watching the repetition of a practice than in one game where you may like Eric Fisher went that year and he came out after the first drive, if I'm not mistaken. He wound up being the number one pick overall anyway. But it's the game. That's why people don't put as much in the game. You can always go home, watch tape of the game after, but the practices and the interviews, right? The interviews after.
Oh, it's very important.
And we always joke about the Chip Kelly and his army of knee measurers and wrist measurers as he's trying to figure out your capacity for growth and everything like that.
Can I give you a story real quick here? So, the elevator, like there's the player hotels in downtown Mobile.
Uh-huh.
And you'll see, and they still do it now with COVID. I don't know. I wasn't there last year, so I don't know how secure this thing will be. But as you said earlier, the media would get free reign to do whatever they wanted. There was no restrictions, unlike the combine. So you could see, if you go up the elevator, you could see the scouts draped everywhere. Just they'll sit guys down and players interview them. And I saw these guys who were on the Eagles personnel staff when Chip Kelly's Eagles head coach. They had this circular ruler to measure wrists.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell? And I asked someone in their personnel department, "Oh yeah, we're measuring wrist size." I'm like, "What the hell does that matter?"
Can you imagine just sweating through like an hour and a half practice and you're drenched and it's one of those like humid days, which is always in South Alabama, and you're tired, and some dude that you've never seen before has a tape measure in his hand and says, "Excuse me, I just want to measure your knees real quick."
Seriously.
That is exactly how it is.
Well, it's capacity. I understand it's capacity for they want to know how thick their legs are, and the wrist size. Okay.
Right.
Speaking of weather, I think in 19, this will be my 19th. In 18 years, I think it might have hit 70 degrees like once or twice.
Uh-huh.
And there were like a couple times when it was beautiful and sunny.
Mm-hmm.
And then generally you come with I usually wear a vest. I know that people, it's so funny. Sometimes it's in the 30s and 40s when it's just miserable. You'll see these people fly in, particularly agents from California, who don't pack properly. Like they don't even look at the weather. Like, what are you doing? And they get
You're
sick.
so right about the California agents there.
You know that. You see that.
They have no idea.
Yeah, and I'm like, come on, don't you look at the weather.com app? Come on.
Yeah,
anyway.
That's funny. So there was somebody on the internet this week on Twitter. He tweeted something about every sports writer knows or dreads about that time that they're afraid they're going to get locked in the arena or venue that they're writing from because they're there too late. And that's happened to every single sports writer I know, and it actually happened to me at the Senior Bowl because one year I was there, and I you know what? Now that I think about it, I think I was there because they didn't send Gunner. Like I was going to go anyway, but they sent me to write for CSNphilly.com, which was my job, and to do TV hits for CSN, the channel, which is what normally Gunner does.
On DNL?
They didn't send Gunner. What's that?
On DNL or for the 6 o'clock news?
I'll get to that part in a second. So they send me down there and they give me they send me and a camera crew down there, and they say, "Here are your hits." And I'm looking at it, and it's like DNL, it's like 6 o'clock news, it's Breakfast on Broad, it's this. I'm like, oh my God, I have to do like 10 hits, and they're all
I remember this running into you. You tell me this. I'm like, well, I mean,
probably
that's even
my last hit, Adam, was at 8 o'clock at night for the last news show when I think Neil Hartman used to host the nightly one, right?
Right.
And at 8 o'clock, there's not a remember the practice ends at like 2:30 or something, right? And you mill around for an hour. By 6 o'clock, everybody's gone. 8 o'clock, the sun is completely down. There's only me and the camera crew, and they have to work overtime to get the extra lighting in because the sun's down, right? The janitor, the guy who's in charge of, at that point, Lad People Stadium, of closing it, comes over and like, "How much longer are you guys going to be?" And at that point, it was like 6:45. And we're like, "Well, I have an 8 o'clock hit and it has to be from here." And he's like, "That's too late. I got to close this place up." And I was like, "All right, we'll try to get it done sooner." Like, duh, you can't make 8 o'clock come sooner. I don't know what we were thinking, but we stayed there till 8 o'clock. He locked us in. The dude locked us in. We had to climb fences and like kind of slip through a big gap in the gate and then push our equipment through to get out of there. So that nightmare that all sports writers have came true for me at the Senior Bowl. I had to figure out a way to get out of Lad Peebles.
Well, it's funny. Dark. So when you go to the Lad Peebles State, for any of you that there might be a couple people listening who are going. I know people love the scouting process. We love it. So we're obviously going to get deep into it as we get. This is really starts our Senior Bowl coverage and our college draft coverage. We're going to mix obviously in free agency. That's up first. We always go with what's first, but we'll mix in the draft stuff. And the thing about these practices, you really get to see. You were just talking about. You really get to see, particularly with the quarterbacks. Can they spin it? You're not going to get them all right. The one that I missed was a kid from West Virginia. I met Travis
Bulger?
Brown.
No, not Bulger. I know you're talking about.
Brown, I think was his name. I think.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the more recent one who played on Carolina.
Brown,
Will Greer.
Many years ago. What's that?
I thought you were talking about Greer, right?
No. Pat White. I knew he'd never make it. I didn't. He was the Senior Bowl guy. He was a gimmick quarterback, small body. He should have been a 5th-round pick. I think he was a 2nd-round pick by Miami. Without looking it up, I think he was a 2nd-round pick.
Right.
I just know this guy didn't have it. You could see the way he threw it. He was basically, to me, a step ahead. Tebow. He was a better athlete than Tebow, but couldn't throw the football, and that turned out to be true.
Right.
But you got to look. You're not going to get him all right. I saw Jarrett Brown tear it up that week. I'm like, this kid's really good. He's going to be. He should be a 4th or 5th round pick. He wound up not being drafted, and I didn't know anything about his college tape. So I didn't know that. I just went by what I saw. But my best call was calling Jaws, and Greg would say, Cosell would say, please call us from Senior Bowl or when you get back. Now, I had a history, like over 7 or 8 years calling them. I said, I got no idea this Wisconsin transfer. Russell Wilson, I got no idea where he's going. It's too early. He was unbleeping believable. I said, I got a problem with a 5'10.5" quarterback. These guys typically don't make it. Doug Flutie made it to a certain degree. Great college quarterback, played in the CFL, whatever.
Right.
But these guys simply don't make it. There's no history of guys small 6 feet other than Drew Brees, because Drew Brees actually was measured. He's listed as 6 feet, but I think he's 5'11.5". But nevertheless, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He put on a show that week. What's that?
Go ahead. No, keep going.
But Russell Wilson I was just blown away. And I, had no idea what round he would go in, and he was just too short. But he threw the ball so well and was so dominant. I mean, I would say other than Carson Palmer in 2003, that Senior Bowl, he did, again, as you said earlier, they don't – the first pick overall doesn't need to go, but he went anyway. Carson Palmer had a great week.
Right.
I would say Russell Wilson. Philip Rivers was great in 2004. He was great that week. It was hard to get over the way he threw the football, like a shot put. As I would learn, as scouts would tell me there, personnel people, just as long as he can get it there. And he had a howitzer, man. He had that crazy delivery, but he would deliver it on time with juice. So it's just cool going there. It really is. And the offensive linemen in the pit where these guys would have one-on-ones and seeing them coached up, pretty cool. This is unfortunately where Danny Watkins, I think it was Watkins, picked up the defensive end from Wisconsin. I don't remember the name.
Was it Erasmus James?
I'm sorry?
Erasmus James, perhaps?
No. I would remember the name if you said it. He had an odd name, this guy. And the guy tore his ACL because I'm pretty certain it was Watkins who picked him up and threw him into his knee collapsed. And the guy would make it with Seattle, I think the Cardinals.
Wow.
I don't have time to look it up here. But Watkins was just so dominant. And I got it. My problem with him was his age, not that what he did.
Right.
In terms of the Senior Bowl, he was great, but I remember telling Joe Banner. I talked to Joe Banner about this, and he said they were all wrong. Joe said, "Hey, I watched the tape with those coaches and everyone. We were enamored with the story, and it was unbelievably strong, but he didn't love football." That's the thing.
That became pretty evident, pretty clear too, with him and he obviously had a love for firefighting and more than football. By the way, real quick, there'll be some pretty good Penn State kids there. I mean, obviously Jahan Dotson is going to be there. He's Jesse Luketa, the linebacker from Penn State, will be there. He's a great prospect as well. So I see there will be some good Ohio State kids there on the defensive line.
I'm sorry, who else?
On the D line for Ohio State, they've got some guys that'll be there.
Yeah. Here's the guys that I'll be watching for in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Devin Lloyd, obviously, everybody wants him. What I want to do, okay, so here's another nugget.
Mm-hmm.
So this happened right in front of me. It was Connor Barwin. They couldn't figure out was he going to be a tight end, defensive end, or linebacker. So what he did, I have to get Connor to confirm this, but I think he did both. I think he did D end and tight end that week. Again, this is so many years ago. I don't remember exactly. Just remember because he was so athletic.
Right.
And he's 6'4". They had to figure out what he was. And this is what happens. I mentioned Antoine Randall. This is the time you got to accept that you should, if the teams want you to change positions, do it because it'll help your draft value or stock, as they say.
Sure.
Other players, Wyatt from Georgia is a D lineman.
Yep. Alabama running back will be there. Robinson.
Who's that?
Alabama running back, Brian Robinson.
Mm-hmm. Malik Willis, obviously, we talked about the quarterbacks.
Yep.
He is the wild card for this whole draft. If he has a great week, he was at Auburn early in his career. He could really help himself. Devin Lloyd, everybody wants to see because here's the thing with Lloyd, how you lining him up because he's incredible explosion, great tackles, interceptions, sacks. How you line him? I understand he's an inside player, but can he play outside? How you going to? I want to see his size. I want to see his measurements. So yeah, this is scouting, man. I cannot wait. This is. I hope the weather holds up, but there's a major history of coaches, teams that have coached in the Senior Bowl. They draft these players, and Kyle Shanahan talked about it. He's not so sure he would have gone for Deebo Samuel had they not coached him that year.
Wow, that's interesting.
That high, like they drafted in the second round because they were like his college shape was good and he was a good high school player, but Kyle has what we call a beautiful mind. He sees things differently, and this happens. This is just the start of our draft coverage and Senior Bowl stuff. We're gonna have way more in the Senior Bowl, not only this week when I get back, but just some of the things that have happened. And by the way, the other thing is Rick Spielman will talk about this on our show on Tuesday. But the value of All-Star games.
Yep.
Because I've been to the East West Shrine several times. Unfortunately, they moved to Vegas, so I'm not going. NFLP I've never been to, which is in LA at the Rose Bowl. I taped it.
Right.
I didn't watch it yet. But we'll find out who did well that week. But these college All-Star games, you got to be careful, as we just said. You don't want to overvalue them because the Eagles did for years. They missed on a bunch of Senior Bowl players.
Right.
But overall, it does have tremendous value. But you just have to keep it for what it is. Really, only 2 or 3 days of practice that matter. And other than that, that's pretty much it.
There you have it. All right. So our next podcast on Thursday morning will be a recap of what you saw and what you heard, both at the Senior Bowl from a prospect standpoint and anything going on with the Eagles and the NFL, as I'm sure the intel will pour in. So look forward to that Thursday, 6 a.m. The new schedule is out. And the offseason has officially begun. It doesn't begin until Inside the Bird switches format from 3 to 2.
Yeah.
All right. That's what I say. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. That'll do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. Big thanks, as always, to our producer, Hunter Brody. Check out his work on YouTube. His channel is called Sports Talk with Broads, and his website is called broadsmedia.com. And as always, we thank you, especially for listening to all our wacky, crazy stories like we did in this podcast. We thank you for flying with us inside the bird.